Yeah, hi, this is Detlev of Wake News.tv and wakenews.net. Yeah, out of Switzerland, and we are in our UNITEDWESTRIKE Radio-Marathon, which we are doing every second Saturday of a month. Worldwide transmission, broadcasting, and video. And I'm very pleased to have Joanne here with me in our specific interview. And she's staying here, taking part in a seminar, in a workshop. And she's going to tell us about her experiences, what she has been learning, and what she's doing, and what we all should profit of, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Joanne, maybe you present yourself first.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the UK. I'm a hypnotherapist and EFT practitioner, energy healer, and I've had clients come to me with some unusual things that I know other people didn't believe the clients. Some of those things were like entity attachments or seeing demonic entities, etc. And people said that they were losing their mind. Because I've done a lot of work on consciousness, I've looked at conspiracy facts, I came to the conclusion that there may be something in what these clients were saying, but I didn't know how to help them. So what I decided to do was seek out support and guidance, and I found Sandra Fecht on an interview with a chap called David Whitehead.
Right.
And the interview resonated with me. Sandra is trained in psychotherapy over 40 years ago. She has over 40 years experience of working with clients, and she was talking about how certain people were presenting themselves with things like abuse, ritual abuse, and she said she didn't really know how to believe it in the first place, but then she discussed how some of the things she talked about resonated with what was presenting to me, and I didn't know what to do, so I thought I would contact Sandra.
That's a pretty one, and I tell you, we have this topic of satanic ritual abuse, for instance, and trauma-based mind control, which is obviously also a topic here in our UNITEDWESTRIKE broadcastings, and we individually report about this. So I'm very, very happy that you can give us your impression on the topic. I mean, the topic itself is so mind-blowing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, as a normal person,
Yes.
you don't like to think that something like this is possible.
Yeah.
But when people come to you and tell you that they've experienced something like this, you have to listen to what the clients are saying.
Yeah.
And because we're not taught about it traditionally across any kind of therapy, it's difficult to know where to start. Fortunately for me, I'm very much into quantum physics, consciousness. I look at neuroscientists' work. I have this brain like a sponge that looks at stuff like this.
Wow.
And I'm very aware of energy. Everything in the universe is energy, how our thoughts and feelings affect that energy, how rituals, times, dates, places can impact energy. And the ritual abuse or the ritual practices coincide with the knowledge that I was gaining outside of that arena. So when you actually understand that it is possible to change things through practices, and then people tell you that people are doing these things to them, and then they're impacted energetically, spiritually, and emotionally, it makes you realise that it's possible to change that person, and then therefore it must be possible to change them or heal them or show them how to heal themselves.
Yeah, and this is not just a few people which come across this satanic ritual abuse. It seems to be quite a few.
Well, for me personally, it was a few, but when you start to look into it,
Yes.
and you really do start to investigate, it's out there. There's lots of people on the internet talking about their experiences, lots of adults talking about going through this in childhood. lots of therapists now coming forward with different techniques and modalities, just like Sandra.
Yes.
And so the fact that there are so many people out there talking about this stuff, there's got to be something in it, and it seems to be worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, basically, we all sort of have the information that we are living in a matrix.
Mm-hmm. That fits with
just like the film, The Matrix, if you want to. So this is quite amazing that this may have to do with each other.
Absolutely.
So that this is systematically done, or systematic abuse. Is that your impression?
Absolutely. I mean, if you just look, if you do some research on this, if you look into the word occult, it means hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
And when you look at occult practices, it tends to be within secret societies.
Yes.
And they use things like sacred geometry, shapes, energies, frequencies, rituals, places where ley lines cross, where there are vortexes.
Yeah.
So when you actually start to investigate this and you look into the true science of it, it all makes sense. The reason it doesn't make sense to the general population is because the general population isn't taught about this. If anything, we're taught to police ourselves and ridicule anyone who looks at this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Because it looks crazy, because it's not taught in schools. But when you actually start to look at the true science, when I say true science, quantum physics, and how energy responds to thoughts, feelings, etc., it's a big paradigm shift from what we've been taught in schools.
And one of the reasons, because most people are not aware of the subject or of the issues, is that the regular press or media are not reporting on this. Most probably because they are being controlled by just a few who control or help controlling this matrix, is it?
Again, if you look into this, and I can't actually prove this, but my summation of when I've looked into it tends to be that people who get key positions across organisations across the world are the ones involved in it. And anybody below that, if they want to keep their job, they have to toe the line to do what they're told to do. And if they dare to report on something that doesn't toe the line, they'll lose the job or they'll be ridiculed. So, I mean, a prime example is David Icke. He was ridiculed completely and made to look like he was crazy.
Yeah.
And when you look into a lot of his stuff and you understand quantum physics and spirituality, it makes sense, a lot of it.
Yeah. Now, you are in sort of this particular profession as well, in order to help other people, especially in the energy area. Now, can you explain a little bit to our audience what this would be looking like? Yeah.
So if I take my area of expertise, or where, what I do as a day job, I'm an EFT practitioner.
So that's Could you explain this, what this means, EFT?
So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So effectively, whenever we have an emotion, it tends to display itself within the body. If it's a high vibrational emotion, such as happiness, joy, enthusiasm, we feel good. And those frequencies actually operate within nature in a self-organizing manner. Yes. So the cells of the body work effectively, we're healthy, our immune system works well, we think clearly, and also energetically, what quantum physics is proving, that we put out a higher vibrational energy out, we attract good higher vibrational things to us. If we have a lower vibrational energy, joy, sadness, fear, jealousy, those kind of frequencies, those frequencies don't self-organize, they get distorted.
Oh, yeah.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
So if anybody's looked at Emoto's water crystals, you can see the energy of love, how it has these beautiful geometric shapes.
Yes.
And then you look at something like heavy metal or the word the devil, they're distorted and chaotic.
Yeah.
So the same is with energy within the body. And our emotions trigger energy. It's like tuning into a radio frequency. We can either select a higher vibrational frequency.
Yes.
Or we can tune a different radio station of a lower vibrational frequency. And the starting point with that is our thinking.
Yes.
So we can have a thought, and that thought selects a higher frequency. Now, if we've got unhealed trauma within the physical body, it's called somatic memory. So the cells of the body remember everything we've experienced.
All right.
And if it's not been healed, the energy will trigger a coping mechanism or a subconscious program. So what we do is we develop coping mechanisms to deal with a lower vibrational energy. So it could be a trauma like that person has hurt me. So someone's voice who sounds like a person who hurt you could trigger the subconscious program to run if it's not been healed. So the triggers ignite the energy that's stored in the cells and it comes to the surface. Now what we tend to do as human beings is we'll tend to ignore it and pretend it's not there, bury it, I'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
But really the signals from the human body is really saying I've got this energy inside my body. And for me, and this is Dr. Joe Dispenza's description of this, it's like you're out of alignment with your soul.
Yeah.
If something doesn't fit, the lower vibration energy is not in alignment with your soul. So your body, the organs in your body display. It might be a tight feeling in the chest or butterflies in the tummy. And what you can do with energy healing is actually tune into it and remove it.
So you shouldn't be astonished if you feel something hurting in your body, right?
Absolutely.
Then it is a mismanagement of energy,
yes,
right?
It is.
Is this?
Yes, and I think because it feels uncomfortable, emotions are energy in motion. And the uncomfortable ones, our society pretty much teaches us not to deal with them. Yeah. It's not good to cry. It's not good to, deal with those emotions. So we'll pretend they're not there.
Or boys don't cry, for instance.
Absolutely. A lot of men who come to me cry.
Yes.
And it's not because I beat them. It's because...
they are not let in society to let out their feelings.
They feel safe on a subconscious level to be able to go to that place that they've been avoiding. Right. It's an opportunity to heal. And every time something inside of us is triggered, it is actually an opportunity to heal. Yes. And when we look at the shadows and we go into those places of pain, once we transcend it, once we actually get rid of the emotional charge, then it becomes wisdom. Yeah. And that's, again, another Joe Dispenza quotation.
Well, I think we could continue for hours. I mean, just listening to what your experiences are. But now you have a practical office in the UK or in England?
I do, yes. I'm based in Hull, Hull, in the northeast of England in Hull.
Right.
My website is www.hypnotherapisthull.com. And I have a therapy room at home. I work from home.
So, well, you will have lots of clients who come from the area,
yes,
most probably.
Yeah.
But if you're interested and you live in Canada, Australia, or wherever, visit her. Get in contact with her. Now, would you like to give an email address, or would you like us to pass information on to you?
Yes, I can be contacted at info@mesmermorphosis, which is MESMERMORPHOSIS.
Yeah, we will put the information in the film as well. So don't worry, you will get it. I mean, life isn't just simple; it is a little complicated, right? That's why we're here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Joanne, this is great. Now, is there anything particular you want to pass on to our audience? What should people do? I mean, if they feel uncomfortable, if they feel they're out of line, they're not in the midst of their soul, if you wish to, what should they do?
So I want people to know that they don't need to continue to suffer with emotional trauma, emotional pain. Unwanted emotions. And when we talk particularly on things like satanic ritual abuse, what we've got is a world in the main that's denying it's actually gone on. Yeah. So for me, I'm quite passionate, first of all, about people being open to the fact that it really does exist, to the possibility of that, to not ridicule people who are talking about this and to keep an open mind. Yes. And for those who feel unsafe and don't know where to go, to seek out therapists, because people around the world are realising now that this is going on, that the people aren't crazy. It's what they've experienced that's the insane, crazy thing. Yes. And to believe that it's possible to heal any trauma, and there are numerous techniques out there. And what I hope is lots more therapists will train in this field so we can handhold people as they heal.
Yeah, because we are all one in the end. It's all energy.
Yes.
And we have to get back to our midst. We have to raise our frequency.
Absolutely.
As well. Because if we do, then we can heal the world,
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Love is so much more powerful than fear.
Wow.
So much more powerful.
So let's have this. And if you have questions to Joanne, please contact her. And we do thank you for being here and giving us this great interview.
Thank you.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to have Fran here with me as our interview guest, and she's participating in one of the workshops which is taking place here in Switzerland. So we took the chance.
Yeah.
Fran, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself, your experiences, and what you want to tell to our audience.
I would be happy to.
Yes.
My name is Frances Toes, and one of the things that I can contribute to a seminar like this is that I was satanically ritually abused in a number of ways. Mm-hmm. So my experiences include the ancient satanic ritual abuse with sacrifices and torture and cloaks and that sort of thing. It also includes the scientific type, which was the MK Ultra, where it was made into a scientific method by the government. And then I've also experienced extremely high-tech satanic ritual abuse.
You're coming from which country, just for audience?
I live in Canada.
You live in Canada, right?
Yes. So some things that might help the audience to know, because I think we tend to downplay our experiences. We tend to gloss over them. We're a little afraid that people don't want to hear what we have to say, or we don't want to take up the time of others. So I'll just mention a few other things. So I was used as a prostitute as a young girl to get men into the cult.
What age about?
Well, those experiences lasted from probably pre-birth to about age 21.
Wow.
So I was also used as what is called a breeder, which means to impregnate the young girl by rape. Mm-hmm. And the fetus is grown to a certain age, usually not brought to term, but the fetus is aborted and is then used in a sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
So I was...
Horrible. I mean, this is a horrible story, but it's the truth.
Yes. I was also used in two other types of breeding scenarios. One was the experiments for breeding hybrids, like combining different species with human. Yeah. And being more or less used as an incubator for that.
Yeah.
And then there was also an extensive experiment over a long period of time, a very esoteric breeding program with what we would consider a mythological being. It's just a being that comes from another dimension.
Yeah. Being rebirthed into our world, or?
Yes, they wanted to reproduce these beings in this world for military purposes because they're extremely fierce.
Yes.
So when I started in that program, it was unsuccessful. And then they got the idea of adding dog DNA to my DNA. And at that point, that program was successful.
Wow.
So when I was in around grade 7, I started to have spontaneous memories of abuses. And what that felt like to me as a memory was I would imagine that I was in great pain for a long period of time. I was semi-conscious in these memories, or I was unconscious. There were things like torture and perverted sex. a lot of pain. And I think it's a very interesting feature that in those memories that I had, there was always a young man my age who the same thing was happening to him, and that we helped each other. And and the way Spirit has it, we have been put together again about 3 years ago. So that's quite a convincer when you meet someone from a memory.
Earlier times, yeah.
Yes.
Now, this is a horrific story, but it doesn't necessarily mean this has only to do with you, but it's spread. I mean, this ritual abuse seems to be worldwide, and not just particular individuals, but it's on a mass area, isn't it?
Yes, it seems to be. And there have been conservative estimates that 1 person in 3 is not enough to say how much this goes on.
Oh, that's incredible. And how did you handle this? I mean, this is a horrific experience for yourself. And how did you deal with this? I mean, when did you become conscious to the fact? At what age or at what point of your life?
It is a fact that when a young child experiences deep trauma, they cannot handle it because they would just want to check out and die.
Yeah.
So what the brain does, it excretes cortisol and the memories are suppressed.
Yeah.
They do exist in the cells of the body, in the subconscious mind. But when the person is ready to deal with it, those memories rise up. So when I was in grade 7 having those memories, I just thought I was a weird kid. I had nothing in the rational world to explain what that was. So I just thought I was strange and very needy. But what happened, I really do say that Spirit puts things together.
But you looked for help, from other people or from institutions, or?
I did, but not for that.
Yeah.
At a certain point around the end of high school, my life just started to plummet. I entered a period of decades of very deep depression and very low functionality. There were times when I couldn't talk.
Oh dear.
There were times when I actually saw in black and white. There were times when it was so hard to put one foot in front of the other, like every step was a chore. Yeah, very heavy. And I was walking through a black mist all of the time. I also thought that my eyes were like black holes. You know, in astronomy, a black hole sucks everything in, and everything was being sucked out of me. And if anybody came close, they'd be sucked in and disappear.
Oh dear.
So it was very extensive. And I actually had a gun in my hand to kill myself. But I'm just saying that to let you know how it can affect a person. I always took low-paying jobs. I've had maybe 40 jobs in my life. I could never make a decision. I never knew what I wanted to do. These may be some symptoms that people in your audience will recognize.
For themselves.
Yeah, for themselves. And it's not just them. It's something that has maybe happened to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but what would you tell people? I mean, how can they, deal with issues like that? I mean, there may be other people listening or watching us video asking themselves, well, I have the impression, it may have happened to me as well.
Yes.
What would you say? What could they do? Or what should they do?
Honestly, Detlev, I am so hopeful and optimistic because I have found what I was looking for. other therapists that I went to before I met Sandra Fecht, they didn't know what the root cause was, and they weren't willing to explore that. And so they couldn't offer me any help.
Yeah.
But Sandra, we're well matched in that she is an energy healer.
Yes.
And what I'd like to say is that satanic ritual abuse there's a lot on the physical level. We see the very brutal, cruel, torturous things, but that is not the end game.
Yeah.
What they are really going after is our energy.
Yes.
We are not even taught in Western culture about our energy field in general.
Yeah.
And in fact, knowledge of the energy field is suppressed. But it is the end game of Satanists to take that energy field apart, use it for their own purposes, as food, as energy for them, as entertainment. They can leave dark things in us. But when you go to the root, like the energy healing, it really works. And I'm not sitting here like a victim.
Yes.
I am actually delivering an extremely hopeful, optimistic message.
So you can basically become normal again, even after such an abusing experience?
I'm going to agree with you, but disagree with you. And I'm going to say that you can become super normal.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yes.
Yes, because what we see is that let me start again. What we see is that there is a creative force in the universe that is pure love.
Yeah.
That is wisdom, truth, that respects us, loves us deeply. We were created as the children of that force, and as such, we are perfect, pure, holy, and we have infinite power. And that is changeless. But what can be changed is our level of consciousness, like who we believe we really are. And where that loving force completely respects us and respects our free will and will never coerce us or manipulate us or deceive us, darkness does not respect free will. And it will do everything in its power to deceive, trick, fool, recruit, coerce, you get the picture, and try and suppress our consciousness of who we really are, because that is uncontrollable. And earlier you expressed the idea that this is like the Matrix,
Yes.
where human beings are used as batteries.
Right.
And yeah, I think they are, in an energetic sense.
It is an incredible story, but it's probably just one story in many.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid. Just go for it and take the energy path back to the roots.
And may I say that because light respects our free will, they're ready to help us, but they won't make the move. They honor us by letting us ask. So everybody, please ask for help from light.
Let's go for it. Yeah, Detlev of Wake News Radio, Wake News TV, in our UNITEDWESTRIKE Radio-Marathon, every second Saturday a month. Please tune in. Our website is UNITEDWESTRIKE.com. Yes, and I have Christine here as a guest, and she has been attending a conference here, a workshop, talking about ritual abuse, satanic abuse, and methods to heal people who are in distress, especially in this matter. Now, I should like to ask Christine to present herself because she's from Norway. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, I live in Norway, and I very much wanted to join this workshop conference. And I'm here as a participant. I'm listening to the others who do the talking, and yes,
And other therapists.
other therapists.
Yeah, and you would like to talk about your impressions and what you have discovered in your normal or regular life, because that is also very important for us to see how can we identify people who have possibly contact with any of such ritual abuse. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. My background is kindergarten teacher.
Yeah,
So I love to work with the small children.
right.
And I've also had in the 90s, I also trained in kinesiology with the muscle testing. So some of this background that Sandra Fetch and the others who are teaching us here, and I had confidence in her background and the way they approach this theme, because in Norway we don't speak about post-traumatic stress syndrome
Yeah,
in this relation.
right.
Yes. And this opens a wider door for me, because I've seen children, very dead eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess all of you do see that often too. And I wonder why. And when at work, I thought maybe these children didn't have the attention from the parents or their long working hours. And it didn't get to my mind to think of more deeper things that might be going on with these children in their closer, how would you say, in their family relations.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you that when I worked at the Radiumhospital,
Mm-hmm.
which is the cancer institution first and foremost in Norway, one of my colleagues who was the leader of the group beside me, she actually did abuse the young boys.
Poor.
And I didn't have the clue. What I noticed, I share this with you because I want other people and other teachers and other people who have to do with children and young adults to look for the signals and the symptoms in these children, and to recognize your own vibrational contact with this. When you feel something is wrong, it probably is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed in that kindergarten was that special leader of this, how do you say, the group, the group of children?
Yeah, the school or the kindergarten groups.
Yeah, we
Kindergarten
have
group.
different groups, but
Yeah.
she bought toys for them,
Yeah.
toys that we in the other groups thought we don't need here, or we leave that to the parents to choice for the children
Or
at Christmas.
adult game.
No, I'm
toys,
sorry,
or-
children's toys.
Okay.
And she said, "Oh, you can come with me and play inside while the others are outside."
Ah, okay.
So there was some strange thing, and I saw these. I have a special memory of 4 boys sitting on the row in the wardrobe,
Yes.
waiting for her.
All right.
And they had a plea in their eyes, which I didn't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So they were sort of afraid of her and
I
afraid
guess.
of the things coming on to them.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And without speaking, they talked to me by their eyes,
Yeah. Through their eyes.
through their eyes, for help. but I didn't know how to behave or what to do, and I had no clue in my imagination what this was all about. And 3 or 4 years later, after I had left that job, I how do you say, the chief of the kindergarten,
the head of
the head of
kindergarten.
it, she came, and Christine, do you know what had happened?
Oh.
Yes, and she was as totally shocked as me. So.
Wow. So this happens basically in your daily life.
Yeah.
If you give your children some place, you should be
very
aware
alert
of the possibility that something may happen.
Yes.
So you need to be alerted up front and inspect the institution where you send your children first.
Yeah, you can't really see anything by I think you have to listen to the child.
Yeah.
First and foremost, and to your own inner self-knowing.
Yeah.
You know, that basic feeling in the gut. Yeah.
The stomach,
the stomach.
gut feeling, right?
Yes.
Now,
Well,
but you discovered that the misuse had taken place, but you know it was suppressed as well by the authorities or police. And what happened?
I'm sorry, I had nothing to do with it after, so I don't know.
Oh, you don't know, so you didn't follow the news there.
I guess there was no news about it, and this has repeated.
All right.
I've come in touch in different ways with children who are being abused. And what has lately happened in my small town where I live, in the south of Norway, there was a young woman who have wrote about it on her blog, the misusing of her boyfriend, who had been raped and tortured when he was in school. He was 9 to 10 to 11 years. And not only him, but the three children in his special class, because they needed special attention. And in this story, I never heard about it before, but I knew that one of those boys, he committed suicide.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's pretty bad.
Later in his life, yes, because you really can't survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we heard with the other one here.
Now, Christine, what did you take out of the workshop? I mean, what was the most important issue which you learned, and what is your perspective out of that?
That these things goes on, and the post-traumatic stress may not just only have to do with your homework or your situation that we normally would consider. The abuse is very much real, and that I have really much confirmed here. And this has broadened my mind to accept how the world is. What kind of world are we really living in?
Yeah.
Because there is so much beauty and good things and light things and enlightenment in many levels.
Yes.
So we also have to clean up this darker side of our society.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get a bit emotional about this.
No,
but
that's, as we heard early on, I mean, love is the force.
Yes.
In the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I thank you to be so open with us, and we appreciate this. And if you want to contact Christine, she's given us the permission to send your questions, requests, or contact wishes to us, radio@wakenews.net. And we do thank you. Christine, a last word to our audience?
Don't hesitate to take contact with anybody or with these people who are competent in helping you. Yes.
So let's make it a better world.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Detlev of Wake News Radio, Wake News TV. We are here in our UNITEDWESTRIKE Radio-Marathon. And don't forget, every second Saturday of a month, worldwide, broadcasting. First hour in German, with me from Switzerland, and then afterwards everything is in English. And English is the topic of today, right?
That's
Sandra,
right.
you are English.
Well, I was originally born there, but raised in Canada.
See? So she has advanced from out of England to the new world,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, Sandra, now you are a famous human being.
That's news to me, but go on.
And I'm happy I have you here. And you have been taking part in this workshop here in Switzerland. And we captured her immediately, right, for this interview. And you've been participating in, experiencing, but also teaching or showing ways out of difficult situations. And I would be glad if you just present yourself to the audience who do not know you and explain a little bit what you do and, hand out a bit of your knowledge for all of our audience.
Okay, I think also I'm going to give a bit of background.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I started out as a counselor decades ago, and before we ever heard of sexual abuse or anything deeper than that. And in 1970 to 74, I lived in the Northwest Territories, where the First Nations children told me about the abuses that were going on at the residential schools. But when you're in denial about something or you know nothing of it, it goes over your head. It means nothing when someone talks about these things. You miss all the clues. And after leaving the North, I worked in a training school for wayward girls. And some of them had been prostituting since they were 9 years old. And as a group of clinicians, we never asked who was the person who got them started on this, how did they know how to do it, who collected the money. We just thought they were bad girls.
Yeah.
We would sit around trying to figure out what happened, why would these girls do this? But we never, ever thought of sexual abuse, which is ridiculous, when you think about it now. Any school child would know now.
Yeah.
In 1981, I went to work at the hospital in Orillia, Ontario. And again, we had clients that were doing horrible things to themselves, and we never thought of sexual abuse. Then there was a training program that was offered through the Children's Aid Society because they had children they knew had been raped.
Yes.
I took the training program, which was 5 hours a week for 2 years. We had to volunteer. And after a while, I realized that the adults I was dealing with at the hospital showed the same symptoms as the children that I was dealing with in this voluntary program. And I brought it to rounds at the hospital, and they obviously received it very poorly because they were all in denial as I had been. And it was a very, very difficult time for me to work at that hospital, having said that I think some of the clients have been sexually abused.
Yeah.
It took several years for them to follow up on that. But that experience was very valuable to me. After that, I started to develop methods to find out what was going on, because I realized that whatever a person remembered consciously was nothing compared to the power of what they had forgotten. And I didn't know, at that point there wasn't research out of UCLA talking about the power of cortisol to pack it away because you couldn't process the memories and all that. All I knew was that they didn't remember all of it. So I took a great many training programs to figure out how to get the information out of the person. And
Yes.
there were a couple of other people who were interested in doing that at that time, but we were in a minority. And in the 1980s, I call it the therapy wars, because people were saying, the few of us that were doing sexual abuse therapy were saying, should we deal with it? Shouldn't we deal with it? Does it cause more harm, than good, and so on? And I decided we had to deal with it. If we were the counselors, then we had to deal with it.
Sure.
And so I developed a methodology which worked beautifully, getting people into a very light hypnotic regression. There are several brainwave frequency states, and the one that worked the best for me was alpha. So if I got them into an alpha brainwave state simply by closing their eyes and relaxing, then they could access the information. And if you ask people to just tell you what they're aware of, because people who have been put through situations of abuse tend to have very little trust in themselves because they've been threatened, they've gone into denial themselves, they've been told it didn't happen or that it was their imagination or whatever, so they don't always trust themselves. And if you can encourage the person in a light alpha state to just go with whatever comes forward and to follow up on all the tiny clues, they present a lot of information. Eventually, what started to happen was the information that was presented started to include things like cloaks and sacrifice and blood drinking and murders, this sort of thing. And at first I came from a medical model, so I just thought they're crazy. This is not true, and they are crazy. But you have to have convincers when you are doing any kind of recovery work. And the convincers that I use are if I've had the experience myself, if it's in the Bible, if science proves it, if it comes from another culture as well, or if I've heard it many times.
Yes.
So I would run something through several of those tests before I felt that for me it was true. It may not be proven generally, but I had convinced myself that this was true. And after you hear the same cloak and blood drinking and blah, blah story, 100 times, then it's like, this really has to be true. I can't go into denial anymore about this. Jennifer Freyd, whose father, I should add, started false memory syndrome, which caused a lot of problems for those of us who are finding the truth. She's a professor of psychology in the States. I can't remember the university right at this moment, but she has coined something called societal betrayal. Societal betrayal. And it's when we all cover our eyes because the truth is too difficult. It costs too much for us to accept. Yeah. And we are all in denial right now. We are all committing societal betrayal. We are denying the victims, the children, the adults that are being kidnapped, that are being tortured, that are being murdered for this stuff. And to protect our own sanity, to protect our own way of life, because we have a very difficult time facing this. Nonetheless, it's going on. And my purpose, my goal is, first of all, to help the victims of this, to say, you're not schizophrenic, you're not crazy. This stuff really happened to you. And when they're able to face their own story, then the symptoms go away. And then the doctors say, well, it couldn't have been schizophrenia. I
mean, you are therapists and you are offering help.
Yes.
Right?
Now, at this moment, it's politically difficult for me to call myself a therapist.
All right.
Because there's a new law in Ontario that you have to belong to a certain organization, and I haven't quite joined yet. So,
right.
Okay.
So authorities are fighting back to this sort of waking up process?
It's possible. They just want us all to get registered. Yeah.
Ah, right.
So
another chip in your brain?
Yeah. So anyway, so I have to be registered. Until then, I have to call myself a counselor. But
well, it's a good one too, counselor.
Yeah, that's
Sounds
why
good.
I'm saying counselor. So anyway, I started to go down this rabbit hole of information that
Alice's rabbit hole, right? Yeah. Well, we know that.
It's really crazy making.
Yeah.
And at some point, because once you accept that certain things are going on, your whole view of society changes.
Yes.
And it's a real paradigm shift. And I thought I was really losing it for a while.
Well, it is also the level of consciousness you are entering, right? I mean, to become conscious is the first step, anyways,
Yes,
isn't it?
to wake up.
Yeah, to wake up.
Yeah. So I started, I really thought I was losing something. And I went to my hairdresser who said, well, haven't you heard about David Icke? And I said, no, I hadn't. She said, well, read David Icke. And he wrote a book which at that time was entitled The World's Biggest Secret, and it's now been changed to The Biggest Secret. And in The Biggest Secret, David Icke outlined everything I had ever found. And so I knew everything, including the strange stories about lizards, had to be true.
Yes.
Like when I first heard those stories about, well, there are these dinosaur things walking around, people are in their light regression.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time it happened, I said, well, quit avoiding the real topic and get on with it. But that was the real topic, and I missed it, I missed it many, many times before I started to pay attention.
Yeah.
So not only do I want to heal those help heal those, heal themselves who have been through this, and to wake people up to the fact that this is going on, but I would also like to have every counselor, therapist, energy worker, doctor, teacher, and so on who is out there listening to this to realize this is happening, and it's happening right under your nose, and you're missing it the way that I missed it and the way others have described they missed it. And it would behoove them to get some education on this subject so that we can start a groundswell movement to protect the children and heal those out there that have been put through these terrible, terrible rituals.
Because we all depend on this, and the whole world, a new world, which we would like to have, or our conscious level would like to have, has to happen. So how can people contact you?
Well, my email is Sandra, Sandra, Fecht, F as in Frank, E, C, H, T as in Tom, at Rogers, ROGERS.com.
Yeah, and if you like to talk, to Sandra or want to have some information from her, why don't you contact her? I do thank you being here. We are at the end of our show. Last word from you to our audience?
The last word for me would be that it is a great world, and every one of us is an amazing miracle, and you would be incredibly surprised and delighted by what you could do once you take the blinders off of your eyes and see who you really are. And that's the joy of doing the workshops that I'm doing. Yeah.
So be confident, we will win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the second Saturday of every month for our live international radio marathon. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why.